Y'all know nothing about this. You need to pay attention. Sit back and relax. It's time for Goodall's Country Kitchen.
All right, I'm in historic downtown Munfordville, Kentucky, and I'm on a 2-day excursion here to show you things to do, places to eat, history to see, and to convince you as to why you need to spend a weekend here in Munfordville, Kentucky. We are right in the middle of cave land, the Mammoth Cave area. We're just a stone's throw away from Horse Cave and Cave City. There's so much to do here, I couldn't possibly cover it in one day. And I'm just going to be talking about Munfordville, and that's going to take me 2 days. But Munfordville, quaint little town with a whole lot to offer. We have Civil War history that took place here that's very pivotal in Kentucky during the Civil War. I'm going to be covering a lot of that. I'm bringing the kids here tomorrow on Saturday. We're going to do a walking tour of the battlefield, so stay around for the end of the video on that. I'm going to be talking about a lot of other history, and I'm going to be stopping at 5 restaurants along the way to show you where you can get some fantastic food while you're here for your weekend at Munfordville. And also, I just stopped over here and bought me some corn. While you're here, they got vegetable vendors set up here on Town Square. Make sure you get you some fresh produce. All right, we're going to head on to the first stop. But before I go, this video production is brought to you by Munfordville Tourism. All right, I'm in the Munfordville Visitor Center, which is operated and run by Munfordville Tourism Commission. And this is really neat. They got homemade wood carved bowls, different knickknacks, probably by, yep, there's a local that does it. All kinds of souvenirs and knickknacks, cold drinks, quilts, Napoleon cannons, homemade honeys, jellies, jams, and sorghum. Stanley's, Christmas. Yeah, Christmas ornaments. Okay, pickleball paddles. They got a big pickleball facility down here in the community park. I'm going to show you all that tomorrow when I bring the kids. You see their Green River pickleball. They're serious about their pickleball down here in Munfordville. Look at there. They got all the gear. And a Kentucky tobacco stick. Perfect for spelunking and exploring around the countryside. Definitely make this your first point of contact when you come to Munfordville for your weekend getaway. Brochures and information. As a little kid, I'd always love to stop in and get all the different brochures of the caves to be explored down here. All right, I'm at the Brew House Coffee, and I want to start my tour of Munfordville here today. It's such a hot day. I don't foresee myself getting a cup of coffee. I'm going to get me a cool drink, which they also have cold drinks to offer, frozen, and different things. And by the way, look at the ornate ceilings. Caught my eye right off the bat. This building's got to be 100 years old. Got books, entertain the kids, old pictures. They got scones, all kinds of different coffees. Oh, here you go. Saved by Grace. What a coincidence. You know I always come prepared with Grace. Different kind of frappe flavors. Is it called frappe or frappe? Frappe. I'm just old ignorant hick. Don't pay no attention to me. All right. Oh, this is old downtown Hart Theater from back in the day. How you doing, young man? You about ready to be YouTube famous? Yay! Very cute and quaint little place. Clean as a pin. And I'm about ready to get into my cold drink and scone. All right. As I said, got the raspberry scone. I was just talking to the owner. All their bakery items are homemade from scratch. Look at that, raspberries. When I was at the Beaumont Inn last week, I had that raspberry cobbler. Now I'm all hyped up on raspberries. And speaking of that, got a raspberry lemonade. Look at that, fresh raspberries in there. Oh, that is so cool and refreshing. Let me just try this raspberry scone now. By the way, they've been open now for 6 years. It's 90 degrees out there right now. So that raspberry lemonade is right on time. All right, so when you come to Munfordville, keep this on your list. Make sure you fit in time for Brew House Coffee. Delicious. All right, this was a perfect first stop, and I'm gonna be headed down the road, but y'all don't know nothing about this Brew House Coffee. All right, I'm here at Big Phil's Barbecue. Came highly recommended, known for their pork ribs, shoulder plates, and Big Phil's Crazy Nachos. Also are known for really good pulled pork and homemade sides. As you see, I got smoker behind me. They're smoking ribs as we speak. All right, so I wasn't for sure if they had a picnic table or not. So I always come prepared. Usually carry a table and chair in my car just in case. All right, as I said, all the sides are homemade and they're not skimpy on the sides. Look at these. And I got a little small sample of the pulled pork, was what Big Phil was known for when he opened. Mac and cheese, homemade potato salad, and Southern barbecue baked beans. And of course, the baby back ribs with their homemade secret recipe spicy hot barbecue sauce. All right, these ribs are calling my name. Ooh, and I can see the pepper seeds. Pepper seeds in that sauce. Look at that. You already know it's gonna be hot. Mmm. Falling off the bone. Got the nice smoky flavor, but not over smoky. And then, of course, accentuated with that spicy barbecue sauce. Gotta wash it down with a little diet. Now I gotta try these Southern beans. All right, I haven't asked Phil anything, but I'm seeing a couple things going on here. I think that's a sausage, smoked sausage, and I also see either it's ground brisket, beef of some sort that's in there, kind of like what some of y'all would know as cowboy beans. So good. Got a slight smoky flavor to it. All right, any kind of barbecue joint, has to have 3 main good sides. 4, slaw, which I'm not getting, potato salad, mac and cheese, pork and beans. Anything else is just a bonus, but you have to have those 4 sides. And anybody that sells these sides at a barbecue place, when it comes to mac and cheese and all that, it's got to be good. Mm-hmm. 2 words: rich and cheesy. Now I'm going to try this pulled pork that Big Phil is known for. I ain't even put the grace in on anything yet. This pulled pork is special. Juicy. Got a nice smoke flavor. Now moving along to the potato salad. It looks like a mayonnaise and mustard base. I see some pimento, or maybe that's bell pepper, chive, and there's probably some other things in there I'm just not seeing and tasting yet. But here we go. I'll eat me another couple ribs, and then we're going to move on to the next stop. But look at that. All right, I'm going to wrap things up, move along to the next stop, and y'all don't know nothing about this Big Phil's barbecue. When you're in Munfordville for the weekend, this is definitely a must stop. We're here at Kentucky Stonehenge, built by a local gentleman named Chester Fryer. These rocks were located from a nearby valley that they brought over here and set this up. And by the way, this is private property here, but the public is welcome. But as you see here, this is almost a complete replica of the Stonehenge in England, which is very mysterious. Nobody really knows the origin. They think it was built as long as 3,000 years ago, prehistoric, and they're thinking it's an ancient burial ground. Very mysterious how the Stonehenge was created. You can also get on their website. They have a phone number you can call and get guided tours. As you look around, these are massive rocks, but these are probably, I'm just throwing out a guess here, probably about 1/4 of the size of the ones that were built in England 3,000 years ago. And I think they call it Stonehenge because the ones in England anyway, I don't know about these, but there was actually like a knob that sticks out on top of the pedestal, and then a hole was drilled on this part, and they actually set it in there like a hinge. Stonehenge. Oh, cool. There's one of the Easter Island stone statues over there. All right, next on the list is El Mazatlan Mexican Restaurant. Came highly recommended. You know, I've been to a lot of good Mexican places in Louisville, so it's going to have to be pretty good to stack up among the ones that I've already done. And I've done a lot of good, authentic Mexican places too. But it's a hot day. I'm going to try and find something that's cool and refreshing. All right, I want to show you around the place real quick. That's where I came in. Hostess station. Big main dining room. Got a lot of booths. Pretty good size little back dining room. I'm going to be over here flying solo in this booth. This is known for top quality Mexican food here in the Munfordville and Caveland area. It is 90 something degrees and humid outside. I'm going with ice water. Chips and salsa. Looks like a good basic salsa. You know, they recommended this place for a reason, and I'm going to find out why. Fresh crunchy chips. Salsa, it has a little spice to it. Okay, shrimp ceviche. I can tell that this is actually cured with the lime juice. I like the little touch of the cold cucumber slices on a hot summer day like today. This is right up my alley. Never had a cucumber taste so good in my life. Shrimp ceviche cured in the lime juice, but you also have the guacamole, onion, and tomato. Basically, you have a pico de gallo that's mixed in with the cured shrimp, and it's all tossed together in the lime juice. And of course, cilantro. Tapatio. But I want to scoop it up in some of these chips because the chips are so good. This is some good ceviche. Here, I want you to get the full effect. I'm going to work on this, and then I'm going to show you some other things coming out of the kitchen.
Some dessert we'll bring it to you.
Oh,
To put it in there.
I'm glad I'm hidden back here in this booth because I couldn't bear to waste the drippings off of this. I couldn't get out of here without getting some fried ice cream to cool down with. How refreshing on a hot day like today. Definitely put this on your list when you stay in Munfordville for the weekend and y'all don't know nothing about this El Mazalán. Amish grocery store. They sell wholesale groceries and has Amish bakery in here. Amish made grains, fresh Amish bread. I know I'm buying a loaf. If it's as good as that Bimini bread, you know I'm gonna have to have some of it. Of course, Amish donuts. Look at all this stuff. All homemade. Look, you could even get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That sweet Lebanon bologna. Look at all these meats and cheeses they got here. Jalapeno loaf. Pickled Amish items there. Ooh, pickled eggs. Maybe I'll eat a few of them and light everybody up in the car on the ride home back to Louisville today. Y'all in for a little surprise on the way home today. Mary, what do you think of that Amish donut?
I think it's good. That's good.
We're going to start off today at Murray's Restaurant, known for good down-home cooking, and I heard their breakfast is fabulous. We just ran into some folks from Michigan. They were on their way out, and they said this place is incredible, and when they come in town, they come here every time. These folks came all the way from Michigan to eat here. What'd y'all think of it?
Great bacon. Great bacon.
All right.
Love it.
The girls are screaming bloody murder. They're hungry, so I'm going to quit the gum flapping, and we're going to go on in and order some food. All right, I want to show you around the place, which should take about 10 seconds. It's not too big, but it's cozy and quaint. And this is the quintessential country diner right here in Munfordville. Just got invited to come back to the kitchen and show back here, so I already know it's as clean as a pin. Nobody invites you back in the kitchen unless you know you could eat off the floors. Look at them pancakes working. Those are my 3 eggs runny, by the way. All right, I got the home fries. I'm gonna put them on top. Ketchup. A lot of pepper.
I'll put the hot sauce in it. I want to try it first.
Last but not least,
Oh my gosh. Literally.
Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound.
Did I talk about it?
I just love how that runny yolk accentuates that sausage gravy. Of course, I got a nice peppery flavor in there too. All that extra pepper. Neighbors next table said, you know what would go good with that plate you got there? Some good homegrown tomatoes. A little salt and pepper, accentuate. And here we go. Nothing like a homegrown tomato. Oh yeah. You can tell the difference between a homegrown tomato. That's the first homegrown tomatoes I've had in a year. I gotta go back there and let the chef know I didn't like it. All right, well, you saw my plate. That pretty much tells the story. You know, when they talk about Southern hospitality, this is, like I said, the quintessential example of, you know, just good down home Southern cooking and Southern folks. You know, anybody that sit next to you and offer you some of their sliced homegrown tomatoes, that shows you another example of why y'all need to come to Munfordville for a weekend, because you're not going to find any nicer folks than what you're going to find right here. And y'all don't know nothing about this Murray's restaurant. All right, we're down here at Green River Park. As you see, right off downtown, there's the bridge going over the Green River. This is actually an old buffalo crossing. I guess it's where there was a shallow enough place in the river that the old buffalo herds could cross over the river down there. All right, I want to refer back to when I stopped in the Munfordville Visitor Center, and I told you about they must be pickleball enthusiasts around here. Well, here's where you go if you want to play some pickleball. Got some really nice courts here. And of course, playground and acres of green space and picnic areas, pavilions over there. Looks like Marion McKenzie and Haley are in a soccer game. Okay, also here in the park is the remains of the old L&N Turnpike Bridge. Okay, also here at the park is a canoe launch, boat ramp, and there is the old original pilings of the old Louisville-Nashville Turnpike Bridge. Okay, this is my last restaurant stop because we're at King Buffet. You already know when it comes to buffet, that's right up my alley. So I'm going to show you what all they got to offer here in a second, but this is just my first plate, and I'm hungry, and the girls are starving. We've been all over Munfordville all day. So sit back in that chair and let me show you how it's done. This is my fun. These noodles, and then butter, shrimp, and crab meat, and I put some yum yum sauce on it. I love imitation crab meat. It's my fun. It's like rice noodles, I think, like kind of like the size of vermicelli. and I put some of that hot Chinese pepper paste on it, which just lit me up. Wash it down with a little ice water. All right, here's round 3, and this is probably going to be it. I'm going to try the hot and sour soup. I always get hot and sour soup every Chinese buffet. Very tasty. Got the sweetness, but also the spice. It's got tofu, mushrooms, see there, and vegetables. And they have American food too. Here's fried fish. Give that a whirl. Lobster roll. Looks like it's deep fried. Put it in a little sriracha. It's tasty. Imitation crab meat salad. Tasty. Must be like mixed with mayonnaise base. All right, everything was great. And make sure you put that on your list of things to do when you come to Munfordville. You got a big family. Definitely you want to get everybody full after a big day of touring the battlefields, going to Mammoth Cave and all the different caves and everything, Kentucky Down Under. End your day here at King Buffet. And y'all don't know nothing about this King Buffet. All right, I'm sure you could have guessed it, but this is my favorite part of this video, and I'm going to do a walking tour of the Battle of Munfordville, which took place September 14th, 1862. In August of 1862, General Braxton Bragg and Kirby Smith, Confederate States Army, devised a plan to come out of Tennessee, invade Kentucky, take control of the whole state, and establish a Confederate government in Frankfort. And during all of this invasion of Kentucky, Union General Don Carlos Buell brought his Army of Tennessee up into Kentucky in pursuit of Bragg because he wanted to get in front of him before Bragg could capture Louisville. So Bragg was pretty much making his way up through Kentucky in what would be kind of along the I-65 corridor. And on September 14th, lead elements of Bragg's army came into Munfordville. They had been told that there was a light Union garrison there, but in actuality, there were 3 Union regiments being commanded by Colonel John T. Wilder. Colonel Wilder was heavily entrenched with a series of forts around the Munfordville area, and I'm actually on the battlefield right where those forts were located. Confederate troops offered to let Colonel Wilder surrender. A battle ensued. The Confederates were repulsed with about 300 casualties. Speaking of the Confederate casualties, this is the Smith Monument, which was dedicated to Colonel Robert Smith, who commanded the 10th Mississippi Infantry. Alongside the railroad tracks behind me is where the monument's located. Colonel Smith's brother came over here from Scotland in the 1880s and actually erected that monument, which is the second largest stone monument in the United States, only behind, I think it's the Cleopatra obelisk in Central Park in New York City. I've actually been there before. But yeah, this is the second largest hand-carved stone monument in the United States. And also there's burial markers with 6 other Confederate soldiers that were in his regiment that are buried there. In between here in the monument lies the railroad tracks that lead out to the Louisville-Nashville Railroad Bridge that was actually fought over several times here at Munfordville. The first significant one was the Battle of Rowlett Station, happened in December of 1861 before the Confederates originally retreated out of Kentucky. And then, of course, Bragg's invasion of 1862, just a few months later, they came back to Kentucky, hoping to reclaim Kentucky. So, at the outset of the Battle of Munfordville, the Confederates retreated. Bragg decided to go ahead and capture the Union garrison due to he didn't want his soldiers breaking their morale, and he wanted them to stay upbeat. So he didn't want to bypass the fort. He wanted to go ahead and capture it. So the following day, Bragg came in force. Confederate General Simon Bolivar Buckner, coincidentally, who is a Munfordville native, met with Colonel Wilder under a flag of truce and gave him an offer to surrender, also offered to take him and ride him behind Confederate lines and show him the masses of infantry and 40 pieces of artillery they had. And he said it would basically be murder for the loss of life that would take place if he did not surrender. So Colonel Wilder agreed to surrender, but said that he wouldn't do it. They would have an official surrender ceremony the following day. That was the third day since the opening of the battle. Meanwhile, Bragg was trying to get up through Kentucky to stay ahead of Union General Carlos Buell. So this delay by Colonel Wilder cost Braxton Bragg 3 days of his invasion, which allowed General Buell to establish defense forces to prevent the capture of Louisville. The Battle of Munfordville, which I want to talk more about in detail in a little bit, this is just my first stop along the way, was actually a delaying action that ended up leading to the Battle of Perryville. The original pilings you see there that support the bridge. A lot of men died here fighting over this bridge. That is a replica of a stockade. Okay, here's a closer look at the stockade replica. Stockades were typically situated, positioned around important railroad bridges. The L&N Railroad was a vital supply line and communication line for Don Carlos Buell and Union troops in the state of Kentucky. So that's one thing John Hunt Morgan, Confederate Cavalier, was famous for, was tearing up railroad bridges and destroying telegraph wires. We're driving through the battlefield right now. We're going to go to another section of it, and then I will tell you more about the battle there. We're in the part of the battlefield known as the Woodson Farm. This was a very strategic location during the Battle of Munfordville. We're located here on a ridge that overlooks the main battlefield, and the Union emplaced an artillery battery here, which was very important when the Confederates assaulted Fort Craig. They were able to lob artillery shells into the Confederate assault and repulse them. That was pretty much the end of the battle on that day, September 14th. If it wasn't for the artillery placement being here and the earthworks at Fort Craig and the other fortifications, the Confederates would have just rolled right over the outnumbered Union troops. So we're going to take a little walk around here. I'm going to show you some things. And we're also going to go over to Fort Craig, which is located maybe not even a quarter mile that way, but give you another good view of the battlefield. This is known as a mounting block, where ladies, you know, with their dresses or whatever, would get up there and kind of get up side saddle. And of course, short people probably needed a mounting block also. And this is the herb garden behind the house here, which they grow herbs and things in here that would have been native to Kentucky back during the times of the Civil War. Very picturesque and beautiful back here. Yeah, they've preserved this very nicely. And I believe that is a wood frame house, which is very unique because you don't see many wood frame houses that have survived 160 years. Or herb garden. You're overlooking part of the main battlefield there. You might notice the railroad bridge in the foreground, which we just left that bridge on our previous stop. This is part of the battlefield where a lot of the heaviest fighting took place. As I was stating, that this Woodson farm is located on a ridge, some high ground overlooking the battlefield. And it's always good to have the high ground because that's where you want to place your artillery. And you get a full view and field of fire. So that's why I say it was so strategic that the Union troops were able to establish this position before the battle started. As you see here, somebody quoted after the war that Mr. Woodson's farm was a perfect wreck. But you can just imagine all the destruction of his farm that took place. And, you know, during not only the Battle of Munfordville, but also the other Battle of Rowlett Station and all the skirmishes that took place here. I like how they have all of the nice shade trees situated here. When you sit under here, it's almost like you're in air conditioning. The foliage is so thick. By the way, see the picnic tables here under the shade. This might be a good place to go to that R&S grocery that we just left, that Amish grocery and deli, and bring you some of them sweet Lebanon bologna sandwiches here and eat here under the shade. All right, we are now at Fort Craig. It was the location of some of the heaviest fighting during the Battle of Munfordville. And just to give you an idea, we're overlooking the main battlefield, and you can see back there the Green River Railroad Bridge. And we just came from over there, the Woodson farm, which, by the way, during the battle, all of this land was part of the Woodson farm. Very picturesque up here. And of course, Fort Craig was situated here for that reason. You could see for miles from up here. All right, so as you can see, this is a typical earthworks fort. I showed you that Glasgow video that I did at Big Man Barbecue, the Civil War action in Glasgow. I showed you Fort Wilson, about the same size as this, but this is just one of several fortifications that were here during the battle. You see they got that steep embankment down here. So if the Confederate troops were even lucky enough to reach the fort after they fought through the musketry and the cannon fire, they would have had to have scaled up the walls and then would have had to have faced short-range musket fire and then maybe even hand-to-hand combat. On the second day of the battle, when Confederate General Simon Buckner negotiated a surrender, they blindfolded Colonel Wilder and then took him behind the Confederate lines and showed him the mass of Confederate troops, 20,000 troops. So, you know, I guess General Wilder, I never followed his career after the war, but I'd have to say that he was awarded for his service here, due to him and his 4,000 men holding off Bragg's army of 20,000 for 3 whole days here. So I've been talking about Simon Bolivar Buckner. We're going to head on into the town square, and I'm going to tell you more about Munfordville's native son when we get there. All right. right, here in the town square. I told you on the last stop that I was going to give you more information about Simon Bolivar Buckner. He was a very interesting and very prominent, important figure here in Kentucky history. Of course, he was from Munfordville. Besides being a general in the Civil War, which he was also known most famously for in the beginning of the war as being the scapegoat of Fort Donaldson. There was two commanders above him that at the last day of the battle decided they were going to surrender, but they wanted to escape out of Fort Donaldson before the surrender took place. So Gideon Pillow was one of the commanders and John Floyd, and they turned over command to Buckner with instructions to surrender, but don't surrender until the next day so they could get on a steamboat and head up the Tennessee River to Nashville. So he ended up holding the bag, and Ulysses S. Grant was the Union general, field commander at that battle. He and Simon Buckner had previous history before the war, but when he asked Grant for terms, the only terms I will give you is unconditional surrender. And if you are not prepared to surrender, I will move upon your works. So their pre-war friendship went out the window at the Battle of Fort Donaldson. That's when he got the nickname Unconditional Surrender Grant, Ulysses S. Grant. So anyway, interesting fact that involves Simon Buckner. Okay, also Simon Buckner was the governor of the state of Kentucky in the 1880s, and in the 1890s actually ran as for a vice president candidate. But he was very well thought of and famous here in the state of Kentucky. Now his son, Simon Bolivar Buckner Jr., was a general in World War II. Simon Buckner Jr. was an Army general and was the field commander at the Battle of Okinawa. In the late days of the Battle of Okinawa, Simon Buckner Jr. decided he was going to go to a forward observation point and look at the Japanese lines. It was the last line of defense for the Japanese at the time. And somebody must have spotted the 3 stars on his helmet, and they shot an artillery round over where his Jeep was, and it struck a rock wall right behind him, and a fragment went through his chest, and he died minutes later. But one of the things that Simon Buckner Jr. is known for being the only battle where both field commanders died in the battle. Of course, the Japanese general committed suicide before the Americans completely took it over. And then, of course, Simon Buckner was killed by the artillery round. That's a pretty interesting piece of history. Okay, now back to the end of the Battle of Munfordville. I failed to mention, once the Union troops surrendered here after 3 days, Braxton Bragg and General Kirby Smith made their way to Bardstown and then eventually ran into the main columns of General Don Carlos Buell's Union troops at Perryville, and Bragg was defeated and was forced to withdraw, and that ended the Kentucky invasion of 1862. And Bragg headed on back to Tennessee, and Kentucky remained Confederate free for the remainder of the war. If things had been different here at Munfordville, if Colonel Wilder had not delayed Bragg for 3 days, who knows what could have took place. The Confederates could have captured Louisville and took over the whole entire state. So not only is it a big piece of Kentucky history, but our national history was hanging in the balance here on September 14th, 1862. All right, you see there's a lot of tents and concessions, food booths set up. There's going to be a concert tonight. Coincidentally, the Louisville Crashers are playing. A friend of mine, Shane Eisenberg, is the lead guitarist for the Crashers. This is a typical weekend thing here in Munfordville. They got bouncy houses and slides and everything for the kids. Boy, these kids are going to have a big time tonight. If you've come this far in the video, I just want to thank you for sticking with me, coming along with my family and I on this wonderful weekend at Munfordville. I hope that you were able to soak it up and take in and understand why People should come here for a weekend trip. There's so many things to do around here. The caves, Kentucky Down Under, all the Cave City things. There's so many activities, you just wouldn't believe it. It would take me a month to show you all the things there are to do in this area, but it took me 2 days to show you what we have to offer here in Munfordville. Food, family, and fun, and plenty of history here in Munfordville, that's for sure. I was hoping I could convince you it's worth your time to make a trip to Kentucky and make it Munfordville when you get here. Plenty of great food, fun, nice folks, and y'all don't know nothing about this Munfordville tourism.
Now you know the facts of why I'm on a mission. You're always welcome back to Goodall's Country Kitchen.